Hello and welcome to Ideas with Diana on this September 7th, 2022. And welcome live to Ideas with Diana on this September 7th, 2022. For today's topic, I'd like to talk about the issue of the new greater good and multipolarism. Let's start with the new greater good. Well, the new greater good initiates from a topic and practice that initiated in Soviet Russia under Stalin in the early 1930s. The first consequences of the new greater good were very horrific, as many people did die, 10 million people in Ukraine. However, the aspect of the greater good that helped later was that the building of new industries, aircraft, auto, and other modern industries that allowed Russia to survive a Nazi invasion and keep Russia from, rather than fighting back toward about 100 miles west of Moscow, some theoretical historians would have predicted if Russia hadn't updated its infrastructure in the 1930s under Stalin, and it would have meant that the Allies, the Atlanticists, would have lost World War II, meaning that Europe would have been under Nazi control until the death of Hitler, which would have been speculated about 1962, as in a science fiction tale that was presented on Amazon from one author, Philip K. Dick, who also wrote Do Electric Sheep Dream Electric Dreams, and as part of his collection. Well, now the new greater good that I'm discussing is coming out to regarding the paradigm changes that really became manifested, not necessarily due to February 24th, but basically a month after February 24th, because there's an idea of sanctions and price controls to get Russia to comply, and also a thing about where the 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement and the Atlanticist polar management of the world is sort of fading, as well as basically in the United States, our second Edwardian age is fading too. The first Edwardian age was the 1990s after the end of the Cold War and the peace dividend, which worked well for a while until globalism started. Then that's what caused things to decay about starting in 1998 and really showed it by 2008 with the crash in the markets. I'll call it a crash. I'll call it a depression. Some people are still going to say recession, but right now, we're in the fifth stage of quantitative easing, with possibly maybe a sixth stage coming. I may have lost count on the numbers, but a sixth stage. And in Europe, people are having protests over energy price increases. In Italy, on the foreign news, including RT, shows people burning their electricity bills because people who are not executives or elites are getting 8,000 euro electric bills for a month. 8,000 euro, not 8,000 lira, 8,000 euro. So to put that in American dollars, about $7,900 a month. I don't know how many individuals or family could pay a $7,900 a month electric bill. In Prague, there's about 70,000 people protest. In Germany, there's people protest. In England, there's a peaceful movement about whether to pay the rent or electric bills. Or what bills to pay, because basically things are getting too high, as well as many some people who are economists and also social welfare monitors claiming that even during the winter many people may die in Europe due to the cold because of not being able to live in a properly heated facility or eat. And this also goes to the Ukraine too, as well as other areas involved in this, because both, no matter what side of the line that one's on, this winter could become a hard winter, because basically, how does a country survive when it's in a massive war within itself? I mean, and also what happens on the one side, based on foreign parts, Russia has been trying to do its best to give food, medical supplies, including insulin, to people who need it. On the Ukraine side, there's been banning of political parties, only one voice broadcast, no multiple voice broadcasts. So I wonder what type of democracy definition is being used there, because even in the UK allows for multiple papers to be printed, not just the London Times, but there's the Guardian, the Independent, the Worker paper. There's the Standard. There's a whole slew of paper, and all of them do not necessarily agree with each other. All of them see it from different perspectives. But in Ukraine, it's all like I warned you, one perspective. And I do think it's nice that the president of Ukraine is now speaking in his own tongue in English, because that does offer trust. But again, now this leads into the new Greater Guard. Well, the new Greater Guard is that basically people are being told that basically that this war or situation in Ukraine is basically to stop Russia from taking over Europe. And some people wonder if it's really a resource grab, because there's some books called The Great Chessboard, which talked about splitting up Russia in 1997. Although in 1990, there are many people in the United States and in the scientific groups worldwide, and also Atlantis observers and contributors who agreed that, like with the unification of Germany, with the unification of Germany, one of the discussions was actually to retake land that was part of Poland to make it part of Germany, and the solution was no. Many Polish people, many Polish Americans, as myself, said no. The 1990 borders are the 1990 borders are the 1990 borders. Again, the 1990 borders are the 1990 borders are so the borders that existed in Western Europe and the borders that exist in Eastern Europe and the borders that existed in Russia then are the borders. And subdivision was not considered and was not allowed. Now, there's an issue about the 1999 borders of the Ukraine. Well, that's something that's going to have to be discussed because of what has happened. However, when you have fighting that's been going on since 2014, and also you have fighting that's gone into civilian areas, and even with different types, also say games when the IEAE was there to inspect the nuclear plant, and the difficulty to even make a first visit, where the UN thanked the Russian security forces for saving the members of the inspection team from being used for other purposes by apparently Ukrainian soldiers that were hidden in the area. So again, with these games, the elitists, the managed press may like to say, well, this is for the Greater Guard. But you have to remember, though, compared to the original Greater Guard, when World War II started, if you ask people in Russia what they thought of what the term Greater Guard meant, the term meant Greater Guard that there's a shared struggle, there's a shared enemy, there's a shared goal that they're working to. And basically, they were willing to withstand what it took, because Russia lost 18 million people, and in every battle was outnumbered 4-1 compared to the Atlantis allies of UK and the United States, and of Free French and Free Polish. So when we consider this new Greater Guard, one wonders if this is a proxy war, because basically we have the Ukraine saying that this is their struggle, they're going to fight their own struggle, which I give them credit for, that they have the courage to actually stand for something, and they're not going to run like the way that the Afghanis did in the last days of Kabul, which is, and also, but the thing is, what I worry about with the Ukrainians and that, though, is even with Europe, this thing about the new Greater Guard. Okay, well, winter's coming. Many people are already starting to have trouble paying their electric bills in Europe. And in the United States, when I was watching the national newscast, which is a new newscast that I watch on Channel 18 in Milwaukee, it talked about even in the United States here, we have a shortage of liquefied natural gas for the winter. So guess what? We're not the only ones who didn't fill up the cookie jar during the summer for the winter. So we're in the same situation as a European friends, a Ukraine friends, and possibly even our Russian friends in that. And what this means to me is this new greater good is it uses the words, however it lacks the scholarship, leadership, and practice, as well as the definition and the meaning to really mean about a unified idea to defeat a common problem and a huge problem. And that though. The other thing is let's go to talk about multipolarism. Well, due to not just due to what happened since February 24th, but let's say a month after. A month after February 24th, the first bill became due for many European countries regarding cheap Russian oil and gas to sustain the infrastructure, which some people quietly forgot that the infrastructure was actually underwritten by cheap Russian oil and gas. So what happens? Many of them had to make a decision. Well, do we not pay for it and try to cut back 50%, or do we offer to pay for in rubles, but excuse me, do we offer to pay for in euros and dollars? But based on the sanctions, they cut their own throats by making that payment couldn't be made in euros and dollars, even for certain specific items. So instead of using soft currency to pay for their Russian oil, they had to use hard currency to pay in rubles, because rubles is based upon a currency that's backed by a security. It's not based upon the faith and trust of the European Union or the United States. So they had to cough up money to buy hard currency, which means they had to use their hard currency. And they're leading into a crisis, which is the same thing the United States led into in 1971, when the United States had to go off the gold standard because one country tried to corner the gold market then to bankrupt the United States. And can the European really afford to go off use up their hard currency to a point where the United States, did they have to go off a hard currency standard? That's a question that I think should be examined, and not by white papers or not by blue papers, or not. I sound like I'm anti-academic. I'm really not, but I am against hypocrisy and bureaucracy and needless procedure, and going full circle, round and round and round, and infinite procrastination. Again, I'll say again, round and round and round, and infinite procrastination. So what does this mean with this multipolar paradigm? Well, what this multipolar paradigm means is that basically, as I see it though, in 1945 when the United Nations was set up, the United Nations was set up with a big General Assembly, and then you had this small group, the Security Council. And so what happens, the General Assembly could vote on something, but if one veto came from the Security Council, that was it. And normally what happened was basically, the real control of the United Nations was through the Security Council. Now in the world, what happened was basically, we didn't have a Security Council, but we had the Bretton Woods Agreement, the Helsinki Accords, and Geneva Conventions. So what happened was basically, as well as the SWIFT system. So if the SWIFT system was the ultimate, was a big arbiter, as well as the Bretton Woods. But now, since what happened in beginning of March, where the alternate payment systems had to be done, and even in prior years with the Iranian sanctions, where Germany, I think Germany, France, and one other country had to develop an alternative system to the SWIFT system so that they could trade resources back and forth with Iran. A new type of payment system is coming up. I'll call it the BRICS payment system. We'll just call it the BPS. I'll just say BPS, BRICS pay, which includes Russia, China, China, India, Brazil, and now Argentina, and I think Colombia and other South American, European countries. So now, instead of a multipolar system, we have SWIFT, we have the BPS, We have the system that's set up by Germany for Iran to buy goods, and but the SWIFT and BPS are the biggest one. This is the little brother with Iran. So what does that mean? Well, essentially, instead of having one whole big world assembly relying on the Swiss system to do goods and services, now we expanded the UN Security Council to the world thing where we have one member of the Security Council here, the SWIFT system, the BRICS system, and I'll just call it the IPS, Iranian Payment System. And what happens though is, what does that mean? Now, what that means though, so instead of doing things through the World Trade Organization or something else, now there's a veto. Now there's a veto between of the three systems, and the three systems basically have enough clout to take a veto over the traditional Bretton Woods and IPS system if really challenged. So the thing is, we really need to just sit down and talk, like Peter Lavelle says in his show, Crosstalk, and also where Oksana Boyko says in her show, Worlds Apart. We really need to talk with each other on different ideas. I'm glad that she can still talk with different people worldwide, because I do enjoy hearing their opinions and evaluating their opinions. And what does that mean for us in the United States? We need to force the news to actually discuss more than just managed news points. We cannot rely on the Vietnam War reporting style where the public is not prepared to understand this. Yes, we are able to understand this, especially when we have to worry about how we're gonna meet our commuting bills near the end of the month, because I see a lot of people by my apartment who leave at 5 o'clock in the morning to commute down to Chicago, which is about 60 miles away to central Chicago, Madison Street, plus paying the tolls and everything of the Illinois Tollway, and coming back at 8 o'clock at night. And you can see the effect of commuting, even of the income, because this Labor Day, a friend invited me to go down to the Lake Forest Art Fair, and we drove down from Racine, and we drove down, and we took part of 41, and we took part of Green Bay Road, and what we were amazed at, boy, how light the traffic was. Normally on Labor Day, people out with their kids and something, going to McDonald's, going out to Wendy's, going here and there, but many people, when we drove down, it seemed like they chose to stay in and sleep or watch TV. We saw a lot of people at the art fair, but except for that, I was amazed at how light the traffic was. Zero. And then basically, as soon as Labor Day ended, it picks up. But that's a new thing, because around here, Labor Day has always been a thing of barbecues. Even at my building, we had a big barbecue. Potluck, everyone bought something. I bought macaroni, salad, and a cheese wheel. And when you go out, and my friend and I went out, boy, and this shows something, because even though in the United States, we're not facing the level of hardship of sanctions that our European friends are facing. We are facing it, and it showed this Labor Day. So, when we talk about this multipolarism, well, why did this multipolarism paradigm occur? Well, let's think about it. Well, in 1998, we started globalism. And globalism was supposed to be that we can make any goods. So, like this cell phone, you could make it anywhere, and the goal was, when we made it anywhere, we're supposed to believe a rising tide lifts all boats. Rising tide lifts all boats. Well, in the places where we made it, it was expected that this rising tide would lift the standard of living in these areas too. But actually what it did, it lowered the standard of living in those areas, lowered the standard of living in the United States, lowered the standard of living in Europe, and even got to the point of causing people to wonder, did we really make mistakes supporting globalism and ditching the peace dividend economy, where basically we could try to live without exploitation and war? Well, the answer to that came very shortly in the new century, and with answers, we did ditch the peace dividend philosophy, and we are living in an era of exploitation, war. although in this war in the United States, we're not sending troops, but we're sending weapons, and many countries are, and we're letting the Ukrainians act and the Russians act as proxy with the soldiers fighting, when really there are other problems to be resolved as COVID, world energy needs, food needs, and even playing games with food. Basically not allowing food, even from Russia, to go to, or fertilizer from Russia go to areas of the world that need it. The reason why I mentioned this is when I was in pre-med, I had a professor that worked for the United Nations World Health Organization, and he was very active. Whenever they needed someone to help on a mission, he was there. He was there. He was a great supporter of the UN and the World Health Organization. And one thing he always told us, he said, "You don't play politics with food. You don't play politics with bread. You don't play politics with fertilizer. You don't play politics with grain." Simply. And he meant it. Because basically he saw how many people, when they got desperate, how many people would riot, and also how many people would go into a war because for a promise of a piece of bread or a loaf of bread for those who haven't eaten for days, or those who are freezing. So really, I understand a lot of stuff has happened. I understand a lot of people have been killed since 2014, especially since February 24th on both sides. However, we need to get the adults back in the room, and we really need to. I really mean that this issue to be solved. It's now become a multicultural issue. So, just like in the past, on the old unicultural system, we had the Normandy Protocol of United States, France, England, and Russia. Now with the multipolar event that exists, I think we need a new type of protocol. Basically, the United States, Russia, China, and England talking. And that's it. We need United States, England, Russia, and China talking in a four-way protocol now to end this. And the thing is, the Chinese, from what I heard from various Chinese scholars, it is that we really need to think that basically we do have to realize where our priorities are. And we do have to realize about what is freedom, what is the balance of freedom. And even with other countries, that when they're asked to get involved, and they say, well, you're asking us to get involved, but we barely have enough to support ourselves. How can you ask us to get involved? So this is why I think what happens now with the multipolar world, we need to do a new set of four-way talks. United States, England, Russia, and China. United States, England, Russia, China. United States, England, Russia, China. And those are my thoughts. And I do hope that this situation is resolved, because when winter really does come, there's going to be a lot of things happening on news that even the managed news media is going to have to show, no matter how horrific it is. I do give credit to foreign press as France 24, BBC, RT, when they do show war scenes, that they do preface it to warn people ahead of time who have sensitivities. And even when they do show it, they do cover up the faces, so basically people are not shocked when they see the horrific, in some of the horrific, and they do blur them out, because war is more than just hell. It's very horrific. And after staying in many homeless shelters myself, I would not wish my worst enemy ever to stay in a homeless shelter, because to me it was like being in a war in a POW camp. And even today, I wouldn't wish my worst enemy to be in a war. So we got to find a better way to this. So again, a new set of four-way talks: United States, England, Russia, and China. United States, England, Russia, and China. United States, England, Russia, and China. To the EU, I'm sorry I didn't mention you, but you had your chance, and you had your chance to hit the ball in the fairway, and you muffed it. You muffed it badly. So, well, let me know what you think. I prefer to receive messages via Twitter at Diana1A. So just send messages via Twitter at Diana1A. Let me know what you think, and this has been Ideas with Diana.